My sister said I was too fat to be her bridesmaid, so I exposed her past to her fiance. Now she's pregnant, divorced, and everyone thinks it's my fault. I never imagined I'd be sharing something like this publicly. For years, I kept most of it to myself. My relationship with my sister Bonnie has always been messy. We're about 3 years apart, me being the older one, but it's never really felt like I had the upper hand. Growing up, our parents clearly favored her. They treated her like their little angel, their flawless princess, while I just existed. Ever since elementary school, Bonnie was the one everyone liked. She was pretty, outgoing, and always surrounded by friends. Meanwhile, I struggled with my weight from a young age. I wasn't morbidly obese or anything, but I was definitely bigger than most girls my age. When I was 17, I discovered that Bonnie had made a secret social media account just to post embarrassing photos of me, paired with cruel captions. Her friends followed the account, and even a few of my classmates came across it. I confronted her about it. She took it down, but never actually said sorry. Instead, she told me I should be grateful she deleted it. My parents brushed it off and told me to stop being dramatic, that it was normal for sisters to mess with each other. As soon as I graduated high school, I packed my bags and left. I went to college in another state, intentionally putting distance between me and all of them. I barely kept in touch, just showed up on major holidays out of obligation. Even then, Bonnie never missed a chance to comment on how I looked. She'd ask if I had gained more weight, suggest I look into surgery, or some new fad diet. One Christmas, in front of the whole family, she gifted me home workout equipment. It was humiliating. Last year, she started dating Dan. He seemed like a decent guy, a doctor, well liked in the community, and the few times I met him, he was nothing but polite to me. After 8 months of dating, they got engaged. 3 months ago, Bonnie invited me out for coffee. I honestly thought maybe she wanted to clear the air or finally make peace. But instead, she told me she was planning the wedding and wanted me to be a bridesmaid, but only if I managed to lose at least 50 pounds before the big day. The wedding was in 6 months. She showed me the bridesmaid dresses she had chosen, casually pointing out that they only came up to a size 12. I wear an 18. She said she couldn't let me ruin her wedding photos and that this would be a great opportunity for me to finally take control of my weight. I told her flat out I wasn't going to lose weight just to fit into her wedding. She got upset and accused me of being selfish. She said I could still attend, but only as a guest, and that I should wear something dark and slimming so I wouldn't stand out in the pictures. I walked out of that coffee shop completely stunned. I didn't plan on it, but I ended up driving straight to Dan's office. I parked outside and waited for his lunch break. When he came out, I asked if we could talk for a bit, and he agreed. I ended up telling him everything, how Bonnie had treated me over the years, the secret account she made, the way she constantly belittled me. I even showed him some screenshots I had saved. I told him about the bridesmaid condition. I wasn't trying to break them up, I just felt like he deserved to know who she really was. Dan didn't say much at first. He listened quietly and thanked me afterward. Said he needed time to think. I left feeling weirdly hollow. 3 days later, Bonnie called me in a rage. Dan had confronted her. She screamed at me, calling me a jealous, _______, and accused me of trying to destroy her life just because I was alone and overweight. She said I was no longer welcome at the wedding, and that our parents were siding with her. Later that same day, my parents called. They said I had overreacted, that sisters fight sometimes, but family is still family. They told me I needed to apologize to Bonnie and accused me of being jealous of her, like I always had been. They even said they'd cut me off completely if I didn't fix things. I didn't apologize. From what I could tell, Bonnie and Dan managed to patch things up, because the wedding plans continued as if nothing had happened. My parents stopped speaking to me altogether. A few extended family members messaged me asking why I was starting drama. Meanwhile, Bonnie posted something online about cutting out toxic relatives and got flooded with support and sympathy. For a while, I wasn't sure if I'd done the right thing. Dan deserved the truth, but maybe I should have just stayed quiet. I'd worked so hard to move past everything she put me through, and suddenly I felt like I was 17 again, stuck in that same old pain. Yesterday, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. It was addressed to me, just as a regular guest, not a bridesmaid. Inside was a handwritten note from Dan, saying he hoped I'd still come. Now I have no idea what to do. There were things I hadn't even mentioned before, like the time Bonnie told the guy I liked in high school that I had some kind of contagious skin infection. Or the time she took my college acceptance letter from the mail and tossed it, then acted like it never showed up. I nearly missed the enrollment deadline because of that. When I told Dan all this, he just listened, quietly. Then before leaving, he thanked me for being upfront and honest. He said he regretted not taking my warnings more seriously before the wedding. He told me he was planning to move out of the house and stay with his brother for a while, just until he figured out what to do next. The very next morning, there was this loud, relentless banging on my door. It was Bonnie. She was pounding hard enough that one of my neighbors threatened to call building security. When I finally opened up, she barged in screaming. No hello, no pause. Just full-blown yelling. She said I'd turned Dan against her. That I'd destroyed her marriage out of spite. According to her, if I just kept quiet before the wedding, Dan would have forgiven her for cheating. Then she ripped off her wedding ring and chucked it at me, shouting that it was my fault her whole life was falling apart. I didn't yell back. I told her calmly to leave. She refused at first, kept throwing accusations at me like daggers. Finally, she stormed out, but not before warning me that she'd make sure our parents never spoke to me again. She said she was going to tell everyone in the family that I sabotaged her marriage on purpose. Later that day, my mom called me. Bonnie was staying with them and apparently couldn't stop crying. My mom said it was my fault Dan left, and that I'd encouraged him to give up on the marriage. I tried to explain, but she didn't care. She accused me, again, of being jealous of Bonnie's happiness and said I'd finally found a way to ruin it. Then she told me not to contact anyone in the family again until I was ready to apologize and help fix the mess I'd caused. That was the last straw. I blocked all of their numbers. About a week later, Dan texted me. He said he'd filed for legal separation and would be staying with his brother indefinitely. He thanked me again for being honest and told me he hoped we could stay in touch, at least as friends. I said that was fine. Yesterday, my cousin sent me some screenshots from Bonnie's social media. She was posting these long, overly sentimental paragraphs about how marriage requires forgiveness and how all couples go through rough patches. She made no mention of the cheating or the fact that Dan had moved out. She was painting a completely false picture, just another newlywed dealing with normal problems. Her followers were eating it up, flooding the comments with support and sympathy. Not one person brought up what really happened. Update 2, it's been 6 weeks since then, and somehow this situation has gotten even messier. I finally found out who Bonnie was cheating with. It was Tyler, Melissa's boyfriend. Melissa, as in Bonnie's maid of honor. Melissa and Bonnie had been best friends since college, and Tyler and Melissa had been together for 3 years. They were even talking about getting engaged. Dan's sister filled me in on the details. She heard it directly from Dan. Apparently, after he filed for separation, Melissa discovered the affair herself. Tyler's phone had synced to their shared tablet's cloud backup, and all the texts between him and Bonnie popped up. There were hundreds of them, spanning at least 6 months. Some of the messages were sent while Melissa was sitting in the same room helping Bonnie plan the wedding. Others were from Melissa's birthday dinner, with Bonnie and Tyler both present. It was disgusting. Melissa confronted Tyler, and he came clean. Said it started as harmless flirting at the gym, but it quickly turned into more. He claimed he tried to end it before the wedding but couldn't. He also told Melissa that Bonnie had said she planned to leave Dan after their honeymoon, but only after she got to enjoy the expensive trip. Melissa broke up with Tyler immediately. But she didn't stop there, she went scorched earth on Bonnie. First, she posted everything online. Screenshots, text logs, the full story. She tagged mutual friends, family, even my parents. She wrote a long, detailed post about how Bonnie had betrayed both her and Dan. It was brutal and completely deserved. Bonnie deactivated her accounts almost instantly. But it was too late. The post had already gone viral in our little circle. Not long after that, my parents called again. They demanded to know if I had something to do with Melissa's post. I told them, truthfully, that I barely knew her and had absolutely nothing to do with it. They didn't believe me. They were convinced I'd masterminded it somehow just to drag Bonnie's name through the mud. Then it got worse. 3 days after that post went up, Melissa used the spare key she still had to Bonnie's house. She'd been house-sitting during the honeymoon, so the key was legit. While Bonnie was at work, Melissa let herself in and wrecked the place. She didn't just trash it. She cut up Bonnie's clothes, poured bleach on all her designer shoes, shattered wedding photos, and spray-painted the word cheater on the bedroom wall. Then she took pictures of everything and sent them to Bonnie with a message that said, "This is just the beginning." Bonnie came home to a war zone and called the cops. They showed up, took a report, but since there was no forced entry and Melissa had been given a key, they couldn't classify it as breaking and entering. It was a civil matter. They told Bonnie she could sue for damages, but criminal charges were unlikely. She called our parents in tears. My dad drove over and took photos for insurance. My mom helped her gather up whatever clothes hadn't been ruined and brought her back to their house. She's been staying there ever since. But it still didn't stop. The next day, Melissa was out at brunch with friends when Bonnie and my mom showed up. Right in the middle of the restaurant, Bonnie started screaming at her. She threatened to call Melissa's boss, she's a kindergarten teacher, and report her as mentally unstable and dangerous around kids. My mom joined in, yelling insults and calling Melissa every name in the book. Someone filmed the whole scene and posted it online. Melissa? She just laughed. Then she stood up, pulled out her phone, and read aloud some of Bonnie's messages. Right there in front of the entire restaurant. She even read one where Bonnie made fun of Dan just days after he proposed. Eventually, the restaurant manager stepped in and made them all leave. That night, Bonnie came back to social media. She posted pictures of the damage to her house, her ruined clothes, the spray paint. She wrote a sob story about being the victim of an emotionally unstable ex-friend with a vendetta. She left out everything, the affair, the betrayal, all of it. Just framed herself as this poor woman handling a breakup with maturity while getting harassed by a crazy former friend. The internet lit up again. People started choosing sides. Some of Bonnie and Melissa's mutual friends split down the middle. Family members took to the comments to defend one or the other. It became a massive, public disaster. And neither of them would back down. Tyler, of course, vanished from it all. He moved out of the place he shared with Melissa and wiped every social account clean. Dan's sister told me he only sent one text to Dan apologizing. Dan didn't reply. Just blocked him instantly. Eventually, Dan had enough. He didn't just want separation, he filed for an annulment. He listed infidelity as the reason. He hired movers to pack up his stuff and put it all in storage. He told his lawyer he didn't want the house. Bonnie could keep it. He just wanted out of the marriage as quickly and cleanly as possible. And honestly, I don't blame him one bit. My parents blamed me for Dan filing for divorce, too. They told me that if I hadn't gotten in his head from the start, he might have been able to look past the cheating and work things out. They also claimed that if I hadn't told Dan about Bonnie's behavior, he wouldn't have dug deeper, and Melissa never would have found out either. According to them, everything that happened, all of it, traced back to me. Then last week, the whole situation took another wild turn. Melissa got arrested. Turns out Bonnie had quietly filed a restraining order against her after the house destruction. Melissa had apparently been driving by Bonnie's place over and over again, and had also sent some aggressive texts. The police picked her up, and she spent the night in jail before getting out on bail. Bonnie jumped on that immediately, spinning the arrest into a new chapter in her victim story. She posted about being terrified for her safety and just trying to rebuild her life after a painful breakup. Still no mention of the cheating. She suggested that Melissa made it all up because she was jealous that Bonnie had married Dan. I stayed out of it completely. Didn't post anything, didn't talk to anyone about it outside of Reddit, of course. I didn't message Melissa. I didn't speak to Bonnie. I kept my distance. The only person I heard from occasionally was Dan. He was doing his best to move on. He bought a condo on the other side of town and threw himself into work. He mentioned that he'd started therapy, and looking back, he realized there had been plenty of red flags with Bonnie, he just didn't want to see them at the time. He told me that even though what I told him hurt, he was grateful for the honesty. Then yesterday, out of nowhere, I got an email from my dad. It was the first time I'd heard from either of my parents in weeks. He didn't apologize. No acknowledgement of the way they treated me. Instead, he wrote that the family was falling apart and, as the older sister, it was my duty to extend the olive branch. He said Bonnie was having a hard time and needed her sister's support. He wanted me to call her, to be there for her. I read it and honestly just laughed. I haven't responded. I probably won't. Update 3, 2 months later, and surprise, there's more. Bonnie's pregnant. She announced it on social media 3 weeks ago with a sonogram photo and some dramatic caption about new beginnings. She didn't name the father. Just said she was thrilled to be starting the next chapter of her life. The comments were flooded with congratulations from people either unaware of the drama or pretending it never happened. The day after she posted it, my mom called. First time we'd spoken in months. She told me Bonnie was around 10 weeks along, which meant she likely got pregnant right around the wedding. And then she dropped the real bomb. They didn't know if the baby was Dan's or Tyler's. She wanted me to reach out to Bonnie. Said she needed her sister now more than ever. I told her I'd think about it and hung up. Later that night, I texted Dan to see if he'd heard the news. He had. Bonnie told him privately before she posted it. He said he immediately asked for a paternity test and Bonnie agreed. They'd have to wait a few more weeks to do a non-invasive prenatal test, but it was in motion. Meanwhile, Tyler came crawling back into the picture. Dan's sister told me he had been blowing up Bonnie's phone since the announcement. Calling, texting, he even showed up at my parents' house trying to see her. My dad had to threaten to call the police just to get him to leave. Apparently, Tyler was convinced the baby was his and wanted to be involved. Bonnie's still living with our parents. The house she used to share with Dan is being sold off in the divorce. Even with the damage Melissa did, they still got a decent offer. The divorce itself is almost done. Not much to split, no kids, few shared assets. Dan's lawyer is handling the paternity part separately. And then Bonnie did something I should have expected. She gave an interview to some local lifestyle blog. In it, she painted herself as this strong, independent woman bravely navigating single motherhood after a difficult divorce. She said she and Dan mutually decided to end things because of irreconcilable differences. Not a single word about cheating. She even described the vandalism as a random act of violence that taught her to appreciate life. It was pure fiction. But people ate it up. The comments were full of support and sympathy. My parents shared the article all over their pages, calling Bonnie a survivor. They started making public posts about how thrilled they were to be grandparents. Dan read the article too. He texted me after, saying he was stunned at how she was rewriting the whole situation. His lawyer advised him not to comment publicly. The divorce was nearly final, and reacting now would just muddy the waters. He said he was waiting on the paternity test before figuring out his next steps. As for me, I haven't said a word. I haven't congratulated Bonnie, haven't liked any of her posts, haven't messaged her at all. I've been completely silent. Some extended family members noticed. A few reached out to guilt-trip me, saying things like, "No matter what happened with Bonnie and Dan, this baby is still your niece or nephew, you should want to be part of their life." Maybe they're right. Maybe I should care. But right now? I just can't bring myself to fake it. Not after everything. Edit, small update. The paternity test came back. Dan is the father. He called me himself to tell me. He sounded torn. Said he'd always dreamed of being a dad, but not like this. Not under these circumstances. He said he'd take financial responsibility for the child, of course, but wasn't sure how much more he wanted to be involved, especially considering Bonnie's behavior. Not long after that call, my mom phoned me too. She was thrilled, gushing about how now Dan and Bonnie could get back together and be a real family. She was acting like none of the betrayal had ever happened. Like the affair, the lying, the manipulation, just erased because of a baby. I told her straight up, that wasn't going to happen. Dan had moved on. The divorce was nearly finalized. There was no fixing it. She got angry again. Accused me, again, of keeping them apart because I was jealous. Then Bonnie posted the paternity results online. She tagged Dan and wrote this big, emotional caption about how they were committed to co-parenting with love and mutual respect. She made it sound like they were this strong, united front. Problem is, Dan hadn't agreed to any of that. They hadn't even spoken directly. Everything had gone through their lawyers. Dan was furious. He had his attorney send Bonnie a cease and desist, telling her to stop making misleading claims about their co-parenting or relationship status. He also asked for specific language to be added to the divorce settlement that would prevent Bonnie from posting about the child on social media without his permission. Tyler, once again, vanished. After finding out the baby wasn't his, he told friends he had been ready to step up. Apparently, he'd even bought baby stuff. But after the test results came in, he sold it all and disappeared again. And me? I'm just done. Done being blamed. Done being dragged into drama. Done being expected to fix what I didn't break. Let Bonnie rewrite the story all she wants. I know the truth. Dan knows it too. And honestly, that's enough.